just night in and night out. He goes out there and whoever is competing that night, he puts on the best technical match, whoever he's working with. And there's a lot of other great guys, and there are a lot of great guys in Ring of Honor, of course, and all over the world. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Daniel Bryan just purely for the visibility and the consistency. And like Mike said, when he comes back and he's been through all the medical issues he's been through, and he's able to come back and still compete at that level, I think that really says something about him. So I'm going to go with him for sure.
Okay, cool. One of the guys who is making a little bit of an impact, I mean, a lot of the name people you'd expect, Daniel Bryan won last year, followed by Tanahashi, and Cesaro last year was in third place. And he was obviously in the midst of that big push leading to his win in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, which has kind of fallen off a little bit this year. But one of the guys that's interesting that I'm seeing a lot of support for, by comparison, is Zack Sabre Jr., out of England, who had a really impressive outing at Pro Wrestling Guerrillas Battle of Los Angeles. So he's one that's on the radar, too, and one to watch, but certainly not with the notoriety of those that we kind of named.
Yeah, okay. It speaks to our readership, I think, that they're even bringing up names like that.
Yeah, and it's cool because it can turn on a lot of people. You know, when you're looking at this poll and you're a fan of, say, WWE and TNA, maybe a little bit of Ring of Honor, but as you begin to look at some of those other names, it can allow you to go and, all right, I'm going to go YouTube this guy. I'm going to Google this name and discover more about, what else is out there. Okay, next question. And this is, I think, the most difficult one to pick. For me, I wouldn't be able to answer this question, really. And the responses we've got have been all over the board. The question is, who is wrestling's next breakout star? Now, the reason why it's so different is you may think that it's somebody who's on the roster who needs, will have a breakout. Maybe somebody in NXT, maybe somebody on the Indies. But in your opinion, who is the next guy who's going to have a major impact?
Yeah, it's interesting because you could even debate how to define that question. I mean, as you said, does this require picking a relative unknown? Could it be somebody who is already kind of a main event star, but is fixing to get to that next level, that John Cena level, that Steve Austin level, that kind of thing? I'm going to go with Seth Rollins. Just listening to Paul Heyman on Steve Austin's podcast, and he talked about wrestling's next big star. And this was from some months ago, I think from last summer. Wrestling's next big star will come out of the Shield, and I think that was pretty astute of him. But it's also interesting that it's not a slam dunk who among those three it is. For a while there, it looked like it would be Roman Reigns. I think a lot of people in WWE, including Vince McMahon, are still counting on it being Roman Reigns. But I think Seth Rollins has probably shown more, certainly in the last several months. And I think the guy is a total package, and that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll say nothing about the gimmick infringement on the total package name. Mike, what do you say? Who is the next breakout star?
Well, Al lays down such a compelling case for Rollins that I can't disagree with it. I think when you look at WWE, I think is a little shaken by the reaction to Roman Reigns, pretty harsh fan reaction. Looks like they're reluctant to give Dean Ambrose the ball so he can run with it for long amounts of time. But Seth Rollins has been just kind of staying there, like just right in that spot where he could kind of rise up at any time. The Money in the Bank briefcase has helped. The alliance with the Authority has helped. The fact that he's been in the main event picture and the world title picture a few times. I've seen a few comparisons to Shawn Michaels around, and I think he's definitely got that feel about him. So as far as guys who are on the roster who could be really the next big thing, he's definitely at the head of the class.
I don't know about that. I've seen Seth Rollins do jobs, so I don't know if he and Shawn Michaels are... Okay, what about Kevin? What do you think?
I can't argue with either one of them. Try to think of maybe a couple other guys, but I think Rollins is sooner than later. And of course, Reigns is just itching for it right now, but it's Rollins has that briefcase. He has all the talent in the world. I was at the Royal Rumble in Philadelphia, and it was just being there in that arena and just seeing him in that match with Cena and Lesnar. Just he rose to another level, and everybody knew he was great, but he just really just tore the house down that night. And I'm sure it came across the same way watching it on TV, but just so good. And he looked like he belonged there every bit as much as those two guys did, which is really saying something.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, this debate about what member of the Shield is going to be the breakout star has been going on now really for as long as the Shield was around. And at different times, different guys, I think, have been kind of ahead of that pack. And there was a while where Ambrose was kind of looking really hot and Reigns was looking really hot. I think the one difference now...
We haven't got the sexiest wrestler. We haven't got
well, it's Nigel McGuinness. Slam dunk. But I think with a bit of perspective now, being able to look back, the one thing is Rollins, I think of those three, is the one that in every spot has delivered. He hasn't disappointed yet. Every time he's been, at bat, he's hit it out of the park, and you can't say that about the others. I like Ambrose a lot, but I think he's lost a step or two with some of the places he's gone and with that character. I think some of the credibility of it was hurt. I mean, I was there in the Barclays Center the night he came out with the hot dog cart, and to me, that's where it started. That's where that slide downward started, and it's only gotten worse. And I still really like him, but I mean, look at where he's pegged for a WrestleMania, this 5 or 6 way IC title match, ladder match. I mean, Bryan's in there too, so it's not necessarily an indictment. But I think, unlike Bryan, there's not a whole lot of people crying foul that that's the spot that Ambrose finds himself in. It kind of feels right for him. And, Reigns is Reigns. I mean, Reigns for a while had the biggest upside, but I think also has had the biggest slide.
Well, that exploding TV monitor didn't do Ambrose any favors either,
Another
though.
one.
I mean, that's God. I hope that doesn't, turn out someday to be like, the new version of the finger poke of doom or something like that, where it's like, okay, now you can say that this was an unfortunate turning point for this person, but wow, that just it really seemed to hurt his standing, and it's not even necessarily his fault.
Another little thing that's occurred to me, and I've noticed watching the network and a lot of these countdown shows and all these clip shows, Ambrose has become one of those like professional talking heads. I mean, up there with like Natty and the Brooklyn Brawler. He's all over all of those, and I think that hurts him a little bit. I think some of that mystique of being kind of a madman, kind of being unhinged, not playing by the rules. I think it's hurt by him just taking every opportunity. And I understand why he does it, and there's an argument to be made for trying to get yourself out there as much as possible. But I don't like it.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, what I'd like to do is I'd like to try to get 2 more questions here. One thing on the next breakout star point, a lot of the answers we're getting are either guys in developmental or on the indies. So Seth Rollins has got a little bit of support, but not as high as we've got him ranked.
I think it's all how you interpret the question.
That's entirely it. I think a lot of people already look at him as, he's headlined WWE main events or pay-per-views, so he's already at that level. But again, it determines what you how you consider a breakout.
Right.
Okay, so 2 more questions I'd like to get to on this edition here. This one, who is the most promising star in WWE developmental?
Okay. Well, you know what? I don't think I need to overthink this one too much. I'll say Sami Zayn, but I think of him as kind of the face of NXT, and he's probably the one I'm most familiar with. I mean, going back to the El Generico days and his work in Ring of Honor and the Indies. I mean, the reality is it's going to come from that mix of guys who, and Dan, you and I have had this conversation, whether it's even true developmental, but, I imagine the winner is going to come from that pool of Zayn or Owens or Fergal Devitt or Kenta, and depending on how long your poll goes, I even wonder if Samoa Joe ends up in there. And are any of those guys true developmental guys? That's debatable. But yeah, I'll go with Zayn.
Okay. Mike?
Finn Balor. No,
okay.
Not a doubt in my mind, I think. And boy, he's got a lot of competition right now. But I really think, given the right circumstances, he's going to be leading the way here before long.
Yeah, I've been a fan of his work in Japan for years, and it's so cool to see him in WWE. And I'm just hoping that when he gets the call up, they won't completely change him. He won't get some ridiculous gimmick that just buries him. But as far as pure goes, I agree. I think he's something special. Kevin?
I'm also going to go with Sami Zayn. It's neck and neck with him and Owens, I think. And I'm sure they'll both do very, very well. But I would go with Zayn. I can really see him getting to a Daniel Bryan level at some point. Maybe not even that far away from now. And he also seems like he's about ready to be called up, the way they've been treating him on NXT recently. And yeah, I think he'll do really well. I think he just needs to keep establishing his persona. He's going to have to, a catchphrase or something when he gets to the main roster won't hurt. If they give him his old indie theme music, that probably help. Yeah, they're not going to do it, but I wish they would. But if they give him that theme, well, people are going to sing it anyway, so they really might as well take advantage of it. And yeah, that's only going to help him. So he's my pick.
Okay. And one of the things that's interesting is nobody mentioned Charlotte. Charlotte down developmental. She almost seems, Rookie of the Year last year with the PWI Awards, and she seems to be somebody everybody thinks of as a immediate, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
She
Sasha
will be
Banks
Divas
too,
champion at point. But yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but Dan, it's a discussion we've had here. The difference with her is, as good as she is, I don't think anybody's question how good she is. In some ways, more than the others, the deck is stacked against her. In as much as it's, at least the Divas division as we know it, it's so hard to get over. And as good as she is, as talented as she is, you wonder if there's a place for that in WWE's main roster. So not really an even playing field between the men and the women. Obviously, that's been in the news as of late, but that's definitely a factor.
I think she can do well, though. You have Paige, who's done pretty well, and it's been largely based around what she's doing in the ring, I think. She has a personality that they've embellished, but I don't know. I think she comes in and she comes across as a serious wrestler, and really, same thing with AJ Lee, for that matter. And I think if they just emphasize that a little bit more and sort of, I hate to say this, but educate the crowd to appreciate that, and you bring up Charlotte, you bring up Sasha Banks. There's a lot of talented women wrestlers in NXT, for that matter. The matches down there are just phenomenal. That's not news by any means, but I think she can do well, Charlotte, and I think all of them can do well. It's just a question of, setting it up the right way.
Yeah, it's funny, too, that you mentioned how they've kind of augmented Paige's character a little bit, but they've kind of actually toned it down. Like, knowing Paige, I've known her from her Shimmer days. She's always on. She's hysterical. She's always cutting promos. She's kind of the life of the party everywhere she goes. So I don't think they had to augment it too much. Paige just kind of brought that to the table right away. But
right.
And hopefully we get to see more of that out of her. She's a really, really great talent. And now the last question I'd like to try to get today, and again, there's 50 questions in the PWI poll. There's a lot we're not going to go through. A lot of business-related questions, a lot of things for the fans to take a look at that'll really kind of be insightful. But this is a question I have a purpose in asking, and that's because I'm already starting to look ahead to this year's PWI 500. So, with that being said, who do you think will be number one in the 2015 PWI 500?
Wow.
In a few months, we'll all be sitting down and going over this, so you might as well get it started out now.
Yeah, some of it takes some level of prediction of how the next several months go, because there's still some time.
Yes.
That's June or July. You know what? I'm going to count on Seth Rollins cashing in that briefcase, winning it, and going on a good championship run, having the belt when we're making these decisions. And that's going to be my pick, Seth Rollins.
Good pick. All right, Mike.
Yeah, it's almost you almost get to this point by eliminating all of the other scenarios. I just can't think of a different scenario given where Bryan, Ambrose are, given the state of TNA right now, where there's anybody else so close to the top like that. So unless Cena somehow, pulls it out and there's some kind of tremendous revival as far as the direction that he's headed right now, looks like it's going to be Rollins to me.
Okay. Kevin?
I'm going to deviate from this a little bit. I'm going to go with Roman Reigns because I see Roman Reigns winning the WWE World title at WrestleMania and holding it until Rollins takes it from him by cashing in the briefcase. But I also don't see Rollins necessarily holding on to it for the rest of the grading period after that. I think you'll see Reigns even win it back. And when you consider all that, you also have to consider the Royal Rumble. And the Reigns won that. That's a major, major get when you're talking about ranking somebody for the 500. If you look at the criteria, it's big wins. It's quality of competition. He went through 29 other guys. They say it over and over, but it's true. And, you have to give it to Reigns for that. I think he should be able to follow through on what I expect him to do. If he doesn't, if his reign is not too memorable, of course, there's a chance for Rollins. But I'm going to go with Reigns for now.
Yeah, Kevin, brings up some really good points. He may not be any of our favorite, but it's going to be hard to top winning the Royal Rumble, beating Daniel Bryan clean at Fastlane, and presumably beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and still having potentially several months of defending that title successfully, if that's where they go. So if that's the case, yeah, he may be very tough to beat.
What I'm looking at, and this is not, the people we've mentioned are all in the discussion from the poll so far. They're all in the finalists. But the person that I would pick, instead of looking ahead of what might happen at Mania and beyond, I'm looking at everything that's happened up to this point. And that's why, in my opinion, the number one guy in the world right now is Shinsuke Nakamura. And we've never had a Japanese wrestler as number one in the PWI 500. Guys like Kenta Kobashi, Mitsuharu Misawa, and others never got it. But and even with New Japan, you've got Tanahashi, you've got Okada, who have been trading the IWGP heavyweight title. But that Intercontinental title has been around Nakamura's waist, and he's just been the show stealer, kind of like Daniel Bryan was last year. So I'm thinking that this may be the first time that we have a New Japan star as number one in the 500.
Can you give us a sense of what some of the votes are in that category?
I will say this, that there is a New Japan presence that's in the top 5. Right now, Roman Reigns is leading the pack.
Okay, interesting.
So Roman's kind of on top right now because a lot of people are looking at it. He's the heir apparent. He's the guy going into WrestleMania. And this is the thing, we're conducting this poll, weeks out from WrestleMania. So
yeah, and WrestleMania is going to have everything to do with it.
If we had done this poll 2 months from now, it may stack up differently. 2 months ago, it would probably stack up differently.
Yeah. All right, guys, this was a lot of fun, informative. Mike, where was all the TNA support or lack of TNA support?
I was waiting for sexiest wrestler. They got the knockouts division.
Bram again, Abyss.
I think and despite the current state of TNA and the knockouts roster, gosh, you even got to look at something like the sexiest wrestler is probably going to one of the divas in WWE. It's just it's difficult. It's becoming more difficult to make a case for TNA and put them on an even footing with WWE, and that pains me because not only do I write about it, but I'm also a fan of it. So I wish I could do that, but it's no fun at being controversial all the time just for the sake of arguing.
Dan, are you hearing TNA brought up in any or many of these categories?
Yeah, honestly, very few.
Yeah, wow.
It's really right now. What I'm seeing is maybe it's just because of the timing and everything else. Obviously, WWE NXT is getting far more support than TNA.
Yeah.
New Japan overall is getting more support than TNA. Ring of Honor has a little bit more, and even Lucha Underground. I'd say Lucha Underground is receiving about the same type of feedback as TNA right now.
Yeah,
So
I think it's just
definitely slipped off. And I mean, they've lost so many stars. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the toughest categories is one I didn't go over, but it's name a dream match that you'd like to see featuring one WWE star versus one TNA star. And it's tough because there aren't a lot of TNA stars left.
Well, before we go, why don't we answer that one? Let me think about that. Joe leaving is huge because I would think Joe would be half of most of those dream matches.
He was last year, yes.
Yeah. Without him there, I don't even know who you go to. I mean, I guess you go to Kurt Angle, and even after all these years, part of me still thinks of him as a WWE wrestler. So, I guess I'd say Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan. I mean, I like to see that.
That won last year. That was actually the number one choice last year. Followed by Samoa Joe versus Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe versus The Undertaker. Last year we had Gail Kim versus AJ Lee. Christopher Daniels versus Dolph Ziggler was another one from last year. And Samoa Joe and Daniels being gone, that's gone.
Yeah.
But Angle and Bryan still work.
Yep.
What about you guys? What about Mike?
Well, this is now you're giving me something that I can work with, because I'm online so much doing different things with the much maligned internet wrestling community, and I do see people having this. And it's one of the only areas where TNA kind of leads WWE, and that is the world title picture. I've seen a lot of folks say would love to see a Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar bout, and I don't disagree with that. I think that would be cool.
That's coming up quite a bit in the poll.
I've seen a lot of TNA haters actually say, look, got to give it up for Lashley. He's a fighting champion. He's actually working matches. They're not all dusty finishes. And he's not necessarily billed as an undefeatable monster of a guy. His matches are fun to watch. So I think that one would be just a great dream matchup, an interpromotional matchup.
Okay, and Kevin?
I haven't given this much thought, but I'll go with something a little bit different. I'm going to say with Awesome Kong back in TNA. I would really like to see her compete in the WWE ring in general because we didn't get that chance before, unfortunately. I would say her versus Charlotte.
Well, do we consider Charlotte a WWE wrestler?
Yeah, I mean, NXT is still WWE. There's not really... Plus, she made that appearance on...
Right. She's WWE jobber.
Yeah, that was a shame, but...
Yeah.
To most everybody, it's the same thing. But you'll notice that there is an NXT universe now and a WWE universe, and they apparently exist independently of one another.
Like the Marvel and the DC universe.
Yeah. Exactly. More like Earth 1 and Earth 2 on the DC side.
Oh boy, it's getting over my head.
Before Secret Wars or after Secret Wars on the Marvel side.
Okay, guys, this was a lot of fun. That was a fun one to end this on. All right. Anybody got plugs or anything like that? Mike, where can they follow some of what you do tweeting?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to interact with fans in real time. So I know Kevin and I both appreciate the experience, and we see a lot of folks from the business kind of following along and participating too, which is always a thrill. Even though we get to talk to these folks for the magazine, again, to interact on the stuff that's going on as it happens. It's just a great thing to do. So anytime you get the chance, if you haven't done it already, check us out on Twitter @officialPWI.
Yeah. All right, Mike, Kevin, thanks so much. Dan, thanks as always. We'll be back next week. I don't know with what, but we'll come up with something. And until next time, bye-bye.
Take care.